Okay, so the recording started, and the content for topic 8 it's extensive. So what I'm going to do is, and the week commentary presentation is posted under weekly commentary under topic 13. You know, in your Blackboard, and I'd ask that probably go through there, because I'm going to be I'm going to be working through that entire presentation. So what I'm going to ask you to do is that participation AA, like I mentioned earlier before the recording, is a individual thing, and participation 8B is a group participation requirement. And what it is that someone already inputted or uploaded to that piece, so I can't change it. I can't change it to a group. So what I'm asking you is that, in your group, just, produce the same output for all 3 people in your group, and then each individual upload it, because that's the way I'm going to see it and mark it for you. Okay. We may not have time to look at those. I'm going to talk about them in the slides, but there's many slides to go through. And what I want to pick your attention to, so for the test next week, if you will look on the weekly commentary presentations on week 7 and week 8, I focused on particular items from the overall slide deck that Professor Powers created. And you'll see that they're marked in yellow. And that's more of a review. So that's, you'll know that there's things to really look at to kind of go back into your material to study. For chapters 5 and 6, I've really emphasized commentary when I took you through those slides, but I didn't actually highlight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a letter. I'm going to send you an email about the test next week, and I'm going to outline a few points where you need to focus on for chapters 5 and 6. And then, so I strongly recommend you go through all 4 of the recordings. And also I've created now a channel on YouTube for these recordings as well. So you can search me on YouTube under my name and the college, and you'll see those as well as they are in the chat in MS Teams. Okay, so any questions before I get started? We all good?
Sir, clarify.
Hi, Sir Gary.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay, go ahead.
Sir Gary, is this the reason why we don't have grade in 6A and B, because it's a group project and we didn't receive in the Blackboard?
I'm not quite sure I understood what you said. Group?
6A and 6B, we pass it a group, and only one individual passed it.
Yeah, okay.
So
yeah, so the groups, but I've given you marks on those already, so you should see that come through.
Oh, in our side, I don't have grade, but my group mate has a grade on it.
Okay. Can you send me an email, and then I'll look into that, right?
Sure, I will. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, and again, when you send me email, please send me through my regular email, my instead of going through Blackboard. I'm still not used to using Blackboard communications. I'm getting better at it, but if you want my attention, you'll get it a lot sooner if you send me an email on gary.sarantola at rdpolytech.ca. Okay.
I will. Thank you, Sir Gary. Yeah.
All right.
Sir, for clarification.
Yeah.
The coverage of the exam is chapters 5 to 8, right?
That's correct.
Okay. For you said that for chapters 5 and 6, we have to check on the commentary and look for the yellow highlights.
No, there's only yellow highlights on 7 and 8 because I just started doing that. And what I will do, yeah, and when I send you the email about the test, I will highlight a few areas to look at in 5 and 7. 5 and 6, and it's easier to kind of go through the recordings because you're going to see where I'm emphasizing in various areas on, what's important for the test.
Okay, so for 7 and 8, we will look into the yellow highlights, and for the 5 and 6, we will wait for your email.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to get started. We got a lot of people here. That's good. And let's get going. So this chapter's, it's just as important in others, but there's some key areas here that are really, if you take in some of these things, I won't put it this way. I only hope that, when I was going through this, at a younger age, that I saw this material because see, a lot of these things I learned sort of by hard knocks, like through experience, and to have sort of a preview of what to expect, when you get into a junior, interim, and senior management role, to have a preview, it'll really give you a leg up. It'll really set you apart from other managers, and so that the concepts that are here, I know there's a lot of them, but I'll try to. I'll try to emphasize, where I've really kind of benefited quite a bit in my own career, and it helped me get promoted. There's no doubt about it. So I'll try to share that with you as I go through this. But one of the biggest ones is understanding change management and understanding, the cultural side of corporate culture. Even as it relates to national culture, because in today's world, post-pandemic, more digitization, more remote working with artificial intelligence and everything else, the tools that we're going to cover, in this course are going to be challenged, and you're going to have to look at better ways to be able to manage people and get the most out of their engagement and productivity and results. And some of the answers are to understand how to bring people through a transformation in terms of knowing change management and using cultural aspects to be able to connect with people and make them feel part of the shared vision. So that's key, all right? And that's why there's a North American saying, well, Gary drank the Kool-Aid, right? So I'm really passionate about this, and I really truly believe what I'm telling you here, right? Because I've lived it. Okay, so motivating and leading, we're going to see that it's all part of leadership, but it's also part of management in today's world. I'm going to show you a distinction between management and leadership, but in today's world, that's melding. And why? It's because we need all the tools we can get. And there needs to be more capability to be able to direct people and make them feel that it's part of what they need to do as well. What's in it for them to be able to work towards a shared vision and execute on the overall organizational goals. So that's why this corporate culture, the cross-cultural leadership, leading teams. And then leading through change, they're all interdependent, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so already we've started now with the yellow. All right, so you see some yellow here. So what does a leader do? Someone who can influence others, but I want to amplify that and say inspire others and provide vision and strategy to the organization. All right, and that's key. And in a few slides, I'm going to be talking about trust. And trust is more than just being, having integrity. It's being competent in doing these things. It's knowing the business. So that's how you influence. That's how you inspire people, because you know what you're talking about. And then we're going to look at, the complexity of keeping the organization running, effectively and efficiently. But here's the bottom line: leadership, it's the process of influencing, inspiring individuals or groups towards achievement of goals. So that's what you got to keep in mind, and how this all comes together. And what's your role? Well, building that unifying vision, developing a strategy. And a strategy is the higher how to get things done, where the lower one is, in using certain tools to do certain things. And that how is in the implementation. The strategy is the how to, direct and execute on the implementation. And then getting people on board and focusing on results and innovating, for the future. So that's key. And then leading yourself. And when I say lead yourself, you need to self-manage yourself in today's world. And why? Is because you have to be a role model to be able to get that alignment. There's this old saying, all right, people judge other people by their behaviors, but people judge themselves based on their intentions, right? So it's so key, so that if if you're not walking the talk, and if you're not communicating, why they need to do things, then you'll be hard pressed to be able to move an organization to follow you to do things. And that's why I wanted to introduce you to Simon Sinek. And I strongly recommend, I think I got a link here. Yeah. So here's the link. He talks about the why, and it's no secret. Most successful, influential companies and leaders start with the why of their business. And that's how you get people to follow you. And that's how you communicate your intentions as much as your behavior. And they see the alignment of what's going on. Okay. And also where I'm going to come from too is, this is the thing that I've built over the years. And this is what I call my layer cake theory. And where you start are your common beliefs and your core values. And look at this as a wedding cake where each layer is upon layer. And if your purpose, if your core values are not in line with the vision of your organization, say that's a weak level, what that means, if this level crumbles, everything else crumbles, on top of it. So everything, this is what they call a values-driven organizational map. And this will help you drive in today's world where, we're all, we're all kind of disparate in today's world. And if you could find people with the same kind of beliefs and attitudes and behaviors, and align that, you've got a powerful equation to be able to execute and get results. So that's key. Okay, so why is reflected in the beliefs in the core. So your purpose is the purpose of an organization has to be very clear and very discriminate, so that people know exactly what's going on, and then they've got ways to going there. Okay, some more yellow. Look at this. Okay, so the content, and it's traditional content, right? And it breaks down. They're saying, well, managers do this and leaders do that. And what I'm saying here in today's world, you need to have both leadership traits, and understand that word traits. That's going to come back at you in questions. So as managers, your focus is implementation on the what and the little hows. When I say little hows, that's getting things done. And as leaders, your focus is on direction and guidance, why, and the big hows, how you're going to orchestrate all these implementable initiatives and programs. And so here, what are you doing? You're planning and budgeting for managers, you're organizing and providing structure and problem solving and creating order. As a leader, it's the vision that drives things. You're setting the direction, you're aligning people and resources, not just people, and you're motivating and mentoring people, and you're creating change. And change is a big part of our world. The only thing that stays the same in our world today is change. That's the only thing that stays the same. Okay. So again, I take you back to the books that I've read, and this is the Heath brothers, and this is probably one of the best change books that I've ever read, because it's very like streetwise, and they tell a lot of good stories that you'll remember. But if you take a look at, what does it take to change? One is direct the rider. Well, there's a lot of leadership things in directing the rider. You gotta say, point to the rider, this is where you're going. The next one is motivating the elephant. This is motivating and mentoring people to be able to, to get them on board, to be willing and able to be able to execute on the vision and all the goals of the organization. And the next one, you see how it gets back now, not just leadership, but management, you know, in terms of shape the path. So what does that mean is that you help people in giving them tools, you give them development, you orchestrate deals with people that would support them. And so you're organizing and you're staffing and you're providing a structure, you know, from the management point of view. So there's where, you know, these two come together as being a manager and a leader. And again, this book is all about how do you transform an organization. Okay, so somebody's unmuted here, so I'll ask that if you can just mute yourself, okay? Let's go here, maybe I can just do that. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Okay, so there we are. And then now we're going to talk about theories of leadership. So some of the questions in the test will talk about trait theories of leadership. So don't lose that word. And what's a trait theory? Well, that's where you isolate the characteristics that make you unique or differentiate you as a leader from non-leaders. And so, you know, do all effective leaders have the same characteristics? Are they born leaders? No, they develop, and that's why you're here. And that's why, you know, I keep on talking about a Flipboard and you know, an application on your smartphone. Get Flipboard and get versed on leadership skills as you're going through the college, and then, you know, taking on junior roles and going on, because by the time you get there, you know, you're going to need to use them right on the spot. And this way, you know, if you train and if you pick this stuff up, you know, sooner than later, you know, you're going to be in a better position to be successful. Okay, so here's some of the traits: drive, desire to lead, honesty and integrity, self-confidence, cognitive intelligence, emotional intelligence. This is key. This one, you know, there's no secret that people who exhibit good emotional intelligence are just on their way to being leaders. Job relevant knowledge and extroversion. Now, let me tell you about myself, right? It says extroversion, but you don't necessarily have to be an extrovert, right? So if you look at my profile, my Myers-Briggs, I'm an ENTJ, all right? But when you look at how I rate as an E, if this is the range, okay, and let's say that this is E and this is I, I'm right at the middle, just right at the middle between E and I. And so that I call myself a closet introvert, is that I could remember when I was a vice president, people would walk by my office and ask my assistant, is there something wrong with Gary? You know, why is he so quiet? Well, it's because I've got some introvert tendencies and I'm recharging. You know, that's what introverts do. You know, they're process related, but it didn't stop me from going out and talking about our vision and trying to engage people and being extrovertish, even though, you know, I'm not way off the scale, right? So I just wanted you to be aware of that piece. Okay, so I talked about emotional intelligence, but look at it's self-awareness, self-management, self-motivation, empathy, social skills. It's the best predictor of who will emerge as a leader. So I'm saying get on the train right now and learn those things. I mean, you can Google soft skills and take soft skill training and really get better at what you're doing. So now we're getting right into leadership styles, and Lewin's a really important expert in the field that we're learning. And look at the yellow on this slide. So I want you to understand, what is a democratic leadership style? What is a laissez-faire style? And what is laissez-faire? And then what is an autocratic style? And the thing is that I know autocratic style is kind of going out of style somewhat because of, you know, post-pandemic and remote teams, and people are smarter today, and more people live to work than work to live, so they're not threatened as much, but there's still room for autocratic style. If you take a look at, you know, like the fire service or the police service, or you know, when there's a fire going on, There's no, it's an autocratic fire chief that runs that. There's no discussion about, you know, what can be done right now. It's all about preventing the loss of life and the loss of property, so that there's still room for it. And you got to understand what's the situation that you need to be in in autocratic style. And that's why we're going to talk about situational management, and that's we're going to talk about goal path management. And it's basically being flexible enough as a key leader to be able to switch your style to suit or to fit in the situation. And that's what situational or contingency is. You know, you can't really predict what you're gonna do, but you got to be ready for it. And that's what this is all about. Okay, so I just want to bring you back to, you know, what trust is all about. Because in my experience, I learned two things in business, you know, two things. One, people have to like you. You know, you have to be likable, and meaning, they know that they can work with you and those kind of things. And two, they have to trust you. But trust is not just being, you know, having integrity. It's a few things. It's competency. So if you're a leader, right, and say that you know, you're in the battery manufacturing business, if you don't understand the battery manufacturing process, and if you don't understand the implications of the different parts and whatever, if you're not competent in that area, how are they going to trust you, right? So how I match that, I say, it's competency in terms of you have to be credible in terms of knowing what you can do and you can do it, plus the fact that you know, you know the business, right? You know the business, and that's what to understand. And the next one is consistency, but I translate that into predictability. I know I've seen this in other areas where some bosses, managers, leaders are moody and they don't want to hear bad news. So what's the point of a subordinate going to their boss and being afraid of how they're going to react if they give them some bad news? You know, you need to be predictable, and you need to, again, going back to what I said about, you know, you need to role model, you know, the behavior, and then you need to be consistent in telling people why. Then you're going to be predictable, and that's a factor. You're consistent. That's a factor of trust. And then integrity, that says it for itself. And then character and compassion, you know, people know that you have their back. And what character and compassion is all about, I put it in one little term called being other people centered. So that's key. Okay, so now I'm going to scream through this stuff because it's not on the test or anything like that. So let's get right to Robert Blake and Jane Moten. And Jane was an understudy of Robert Blake, but really, okay, look at this yellow arrow. They wanted to find a leadership approach that was kind of being in between McGregor's X and Y theories, you know, of management, of leadership, and so that, you know, there could be more opportunity to adjust to the situation. So you can see here, and I think I have to take this off so I can show you the bottom of the scale. Okay. All right. So the bottom of the scale is concern for production, and the y-axis is concern for people. So here you go. So if you really have a high concern for production, so again, you know, you're action oriented, and then a high concern for people. So that really encompasses McGregor's theory Y. And then if you're really you know, high on task again, and the thing is, if you're really low or lower on concern for people, well, then you see theory X is going to be lower on this piece, and then you could be the other way. You know, you can have absolute low concern for people and very high on task, and that's produce or perish style. So, you know, there's some use for these different areas, you know, in this piece that Robert Blake tried to kind of expand on to give you a sense of how can you adjust your style, your leadership style, to be able to be best performing in the situation that's there. All right, that's the key. Okay. Okay, so now I'm just going to get back to getting back to the. Okay, just sorry, I'm just going to. Okay, so I'm going to go a little faster now because I want to make sure I get through all these slides. But here's what we, when I talked about contingency theories, I wanted you to, I know when I was a student, sometimes, I'd be, taking in a lecture and a professor would use a term and I didn't even know the definition. Just in case there's someone out there that doesn't know what contingency means, I actually put it in here, right? So the contingency is a future event or circumstance which is possible but can't be predicted. And that's the key about contingency theories of leadership, is that you don't know what to expect sometimes and what the situation will be that you're going to be put in as a leader. And so what kind of style do you need to exercise? So what it is then is that get ready now and learn, 3 kinds of contingency theories. So the Fiedler model, situational leadership, and path goal theory. These bottom 2 are quite the same, but you'll see as we go through it. Okay, so here's where you're going to do your own assessment. This is an individual assessment, so that's what I'm asking you to do. There's really nothing we can do here in class on this, but let me start with Fiedler's approach to contingency leadership. So what Fiedler was all about was defining leadership styles and how they could fit in different types of situations. And then you identify the appropriate combination of style and situation. All right, because sometimes it's a hybrid. You might have to be a certain way predominantly, but maybe another way to be able to get the whole thing done right in that particular situation. So what it's doing for you is that everybody has sort of predominant tendencies. Even when you do these style surveys, these personal surveys or whatever, it's the predominant view that you're in at the time, and you got to understand that you're moving around as an individual in terms of what your preferences are and everything else, and sometimes you don't even know it. So how you get around that is just learn more about what those ranges are and how you could use them given a different situation. Okay, so here, how did Fiedler kind of really find out about this and how to do that? He came up with the score system, and there was this questionnaire, and it's in your slide deck. You'll see all these questionnaires, and what they did was they looked at predominantly the least preferred coworker, the least preferred. So that means, they're going to tell you the story, the way they see it, right? And so that if you scored greater than 64 from least preferred coworker score, that means you're a relationship-oriented style. You're more of a people person. And if you scored less than 57, well, then you're more of a task-oriented person, all right? But again, things change, and that's your predominance. And you can shift a certain amount by yourself, but if you train yourself, you can widen that range, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so take a look at what Fiedler did is he identified the 3 main attributes of a situation, right? And the three main attributes of a situation is what the leader-member relations look like. Did they trust you as a leader? Did they respect you, or do they don't respect you? So that's one attribute of the situation. The other one is, how is that task structured? Is it supported? Do they have all the tools? Is it all laid out? Are there procedures and processes? Is it formalized? So it perhaps it needs less direction or the employees need less direction to be able to execute on their duties. All right, given the task structure. And then position power. And that's the degree that you have in terms of influence as a leader over activities, over the hiring, over the firing, over the rewards. If you've got a lot of power and leverage on there, well, that's a different situation, right? A different part of the situation. And so he looks at these. So here's, the end result of all this. If you're a relationship-oriented style, here's where you do the best, and that's, in this area, where there's good leader-member relations, low task structure, because then, because you're relationship-oriented, you can convince people to kind of take on those accountabilities and responsibilities to themselves, and they know that you're going to help them, you're going to support them doing that. And again, you may not have, you may have some strong position power. So this is where you're going to shine. Okay. And here's where the task oriented, they're going to shine on favorable and unfavorable. So again, what's that saying is that given what the mix of leader-member relations, task structure, and position power is, if you switch styles, you'll be able to maximize across many situations. That's the crux of all this. So look at this, more yellow. A leadership theory that focuses on the readiness of followers. So it's all about the followers, right? It's all about the followers. And readiness to the extent that which people have the ability, so that's the skills and capabilities, and the willingness, all right? Some people are not willing to do certain things. And again, if you're in a situation where they're like professionals and you're treating them, you're micromanaging them, they will probably tell you to, pick a trail. Like, no, don't bug me. Let me alone. And if you don't, then, I'm just not going to do this job. So that's where this, this statement is going. Okay. So again, it's all about adjusting to the appropriate leadership style based on the situation. So again, here, you have the relationship behavior from low to high and the task behavior. But let's just concentrate on what's in these boxes. Is that, if you have able but unwilling and insecure followers, that means they've got the skills or capabilities to do that. But what you do then, because they're unwilling, if you have a participating style, and that's more of a people-oriented, you seek their input, and then you can co-opt them or engage them into following you, to get the job done. On this other one here, if they're people are able and willing, and they're it's a low task behavior, meaning they could do this really well. Well, then you just delegate to them. So your delegating style will work fine. You say, okay, you know what has to get done. You got the tools, go for it. All right, and tell me when it's done. And then on this one here, where the followers are unable, but they're willing and they're confident, well, then what you got to do is, you've got to explain and persuade. You do the selling. And this one here, where they're unable, unwilling, or whatever, you just tell them, get this done. All right. So that comes down to telling, selling, participating, and delegating. You need to understand, these components. So here's where Blanchard and his partner, they took that work and they looked at, the situational leadership model and the situational leadership type 2 model. And what they looked at is they took these delegating, participating, and selling terms in these quadrants, and then they looked at the developmental levels of the people, and this is kind of the path right here. So if they're high performance readiness and they're in a developed area, well then they're able and willing and to do what is asked. So you'll do that. So this gives you the combinations to go through, and I'll leave it at that. So they work the combinations so that you can see what you're working with from the follower point of view and the situation point of view, and then adopt that particular style to be able to to help the combination of both. That's what this is all about. Okay, so now that's Blanchard and Hersey, and now we'll go to Houses. is path goal theory, which is somewhat similar. But the thing is, it's the leader's job to assist the follower. That's the key in this thing, in attaining their goals and provide the necessary direction, to support, to ensure those goals are, they align with the overall objectives of the organization. And this assumes, again, the same leader can display any of those leadership styles depending on the situation. Okay, so I remember when I got my first supervision job with one person, I had no idea what to do. And I was only hoping that maybe I took a course like this where I'd know where to start. Okay, so I'm saying that this can really help you as you leave this. But what do those situational variables break down to? They break down to personal characteristics and environmental variables, right? So, where are the followers and what shape they are? So how do you use motivation, readiness, and role identity? And then what are the things that you need to come up against in terms of available resources and structure and those kind of things? So this is key. See that in yellow? So that's really key. And then really where Robert House came from, he was really a big part of Room's expectancy theory. So what you do is that on the expectancy model is that you make that this is what I expect you to do, that effort performance linkage, and then they will get to an individual performance, and then you say, yeah, and then I'm going to reward you to do even more towards the organization. And here's where the other piece comes in terms of the reward, the organizational rewards. This is what you have to know, is that sometimes these organizational rewards are not enough. They will have low expectancy. So you got to find out, what your followers really appreciate, and then develop those rewards to maintain those organizational expectations that will then translate into individual goals that will align, with the organizational goals, and then you've got a winning combination. So that's how that works. Okay, so again on the path goal theory, what are the styles? Well, directive, supportive, participative, and achievement oriented. We've already talked about these, right? All right. So, but here's a case. So here's a case that you should be very familiar with. So if a situation is where a follower lacks self-confidence, well, then you know that you need to have supportive leadership. And then what does that result in? It increases the worker's confidence to achieve the work outcomes, saying, hey, Jasmine, you're really good at this. I mean, look at what you've done the other day. It was a similar task, but you achieved that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to maybe help you here for a little while to show you how to achieve your targets. And then I'm going to let you go for it because I know you can do it. And then what happens, Jasmine has more effort. She's improved, in her personal satisfaction and the satisfaction of achieving the results and reaching that performance. So that's how this leadership behavior can help in that particular situation. So that's where that is. Okay, so again, this slide just tells you what I went through, and just remember, that the situational variables are the personal characteristics of Jasmine, and then the environment variables. Did you provide tools? Did you get them, people to check in on them? Did you set up the process right? Did they have the right procedures? All those things. Okay. All right. So that's that section, and now we're going to get into transactional versus transformational. So what does that mean? What does a transactional leader do? Well, a transactional is like, if you do this, I'll do that. Okay. So if you produce 30 barrels of carrots, 30 bushels of carrots today, I will award you with a $5 bonus. It's transactional. If you don't produce, if you produce less than 25 bushels, I'm going to make you work Saturdays. Okay. So again, leaders who guide or motivate their followers in the direction of established goals by clarifying role and task requirements. What's transformational? Well, I kept on talking about, using the word inspire. Well, here it is. So leaders inspire followers to get beyond their self-interest and for the good of the organization. And this is, you know, I keep on talking about, and I know some of you, you know, I have different language. There's an FM station, a radio station. It's called WIIFM. What's in it for me? And you need to understand that. You know, you need to understand, you know, your followers. You know, what are they looking for as individuals? And to be transformational, you convince them that by looking at the overall achievement of the vision, they can see themselves in that vision. You know, they share in that vision, and they'll go beyond their self-interest because they know it's for a cause. It's for something bigger than what they are, and that has a profound and extraordinary effect on the followers. And you know, you can see this in different people, like Jeff Bezos. You know, when he started, you know, he was just a book. You know, a book broker, but he had the personality and he had the actions to influence people to behave a certain way. And it's a great comparison with Elon Musk, because Elon Musk is all about, okay, we're going to put somebody out, you know, to go to Mars, right? So that's the vision, right? But is he a great, you know, leader in terms of people-wise? No. Okay. So there's two ways of doing it, you know, but look at, you know, what he's done. You know, articulates a realistic, credible, and attractive vision of the future that improves the present situation. So just think, if you knew how to do both, man, you'd be very famous. Okay, so that's the way to look at it. So understand what the definitions are, and then understand that, you know, what do team leaders do? And you're going to be in a lot of maybe self-managed teams, you know, in days to come. You're going to be working in certain maybe matrix teams to get things done in organizations or across organizations. So if you happen to be the team leader, how are you going to manage that? Well, you have to be the coordinator, so to speak. You got to liaise between, you know, the external bodies, you know, to help your project be accepted, to help your team members be accepted and supported out there. So there's liaison with external constituencies. That's really key. And then troubleshooting. So you're the person that's going to find out, okay, what's working and what's not working, and how can I get around not working so the team could be more successful. And when it comes to people, there's always going to be conflict management. So there's a soft skill that you really need to learn. And again, you know, all you need to do is go to Dr. Google and find even, you know, a summary of a book on conflict management to you know, for starters, or find, you know, micro qualifications on conflict management and other soft skills. And then you got to do a lot of coaching, and you got to learn how to coach. Coaching is a skill, and there's a lot of coaching organizations out there that will train you to be a coach. And then actually hire you to coach other business people. So those are the kind of leadership roles that team leaders need to have. And look at, you know, we talked about emotional intelligence. You know, we talked about soft skills. Well, look what this is all about. You know, liaison and external constituencies. What do you think that you need for that? You need negotiating skills, right? So don't ever downplay, you know, why would I need negotiating skills? I'm just a worker. So that's key. Okay, and then just understand, you know, there's groups and then there's teams, and so you can have, you know, work teams, you know, work and work groups, and work groups, you know, they'll share information, but they're not committed to each other, and so, you know, a work team is interacting and independent individuals. You know, they'll work intensely, they'll support, and they'll, you know, because they have a common goal, but it's individual and mutual accountability. Whereas the team, you know, in an actual, you know, in the absolute team environment is key. And so when you're creating this team, right? I posed this question in the in-person class. You know, who's heard of Tuckman's stages of group development? You know, forming, storming, norming, performing, adjourning. And I thought that I'd see a lot more hands go up, and I'm just surprised because this is basically bread and butter in terms of understanding, team development, and so that all groups go through this, and you're forming, you're storming, you're norming, and performing, and then when you complete that task, then you have to adjourn, and I'll talk about that a little bit. But here's where you go. So and I've been in many teams over my corporate experience, and day one is you show up at a meeting, and there's 6 or 7 or 10 people around the table, and you're told, hey, you've come from different areas, and you're going to have to create this team because we have this particular issue that we want to solve. And what's the first thing that you're doing? You're insecure. You're saying, oh, gee, how do I fit in this team? Do I have enough skills? Who's running this? Who's going to run this show? And then how do we, how am I going to work with some of these people? I look at some of these faces. I don't really care for that person. I don't know why. I never met them before. So, but what happens then? You start acquainting, and then you start establishing some ground rules. But you're not at the point where you're ready to work with these people. You just want to do your thing. Okay, so then a week or two goes by, and then you start getting into the work items, and the storming comes up. So we start to communicate our feelings about, well, I don't like the way you do this, or maybe there's one person that says, hey, this is the way it's got to be done, and they try to bully people or whatever, and all this results in people resisting control by certain people in the group, and there could be hostility, right? And then 3 weeks go by, and you haven't quite gotten some of the results, and everybody's worrying about their performance rewards and everything else. They're saying, hey, we got to do something here. Let's make this work. So then what they start doing is they start establishing norms or guidelines. You know what? This is the best way we can do this if we all agreed on these certain principles of how we're going to behave and what we're going to achieve and how we're going to work, right? And they start accepting that. And then from that stage on, things start, coming together. They start performing, and the team works, and they start trusting each other because now they know each other in a good way, and they feel good about their relationships, and that the hierarchy is not important anymore. It's about the team end result. The main goal is very specific, and that's what they want to do, and then they achieve that. And now here's where my experience comes in. There's a lot of projects that I've been on where the group was very successful. Okay, so I'll give you one example. Is that there was a group that came together and developed this one product in telecom. It was so successful. All right, and what happened was it went over a few years. So people's their self-worth was tied to this project, and lo and behold, because of the internet, the technology changed, and there was a new, cheaper, better way of doing it. And these people that worked on this project didn't want to let go, and they kept their customers, in that mix, so that there wasn't a break between going from this technology to the next. So adjourning is really important. You got to understand closure. And you've got to, know how you're going to transition from that end result of the project to where people, graduate to, and how things can move on in the company. So that's really key. So know these steps, and look at this. So you really need to know a lot about storming, and you can see that there's a lot of intergroup conflict. So lo and behold, the leader of that team really needs to know conflict management. Right, that's key. So let's take a look at these tables and going through them. Now we get into effective communication. And you got to understand that communication is a process, okay? And I'm sure there are many types of processes out there, but around that communication process, there's all kinds of interference around that noise. Maybe sometimes it's just opinion. Maybe that's, it's commentary. Maybe it's just people venting or whatever. So as a sender, you got to understand who is my audience, right? And what's the purpose of my communication? And sometimes you might decide, hey, you know what? maybe I'm just going to go talk to them in person because, you know, it needs to be, you know, a one-on-one kind of thing. So you establish what the purpose is, you know what your audience is like, so then you can construct that message to a certain way, configuration that they can understand. And that's when you're encoding, all right? And then you send that message through a channel, and that channel could be face-to-face, it could be an email, it could be you know, a broadcast, it could be a newsletter, it could be a paper that you've written or whatever. And then you, again, always thinking about your audience, and will they understand that message? And then how do you find out if they've understood that message? So what happens is they get that message, let's say it's an email, and then they decode it. You know, they try to translate that into, what does that mean to me? And what you have to understand is, when they're decoding that message, you don't know what situation they're under. And maybe they just came through you know, a family issue, and they just got back to work. And how they read this, you know, will have an effect, you know, on their frame of reference. And so that what needs to be clear then is that you need to get a communication back from them saying, okay, you know, did you understand this? And that's what I find in business, is that no matter what kind of communication that you get in business, reply, right? Just a common courtesy to reply, but reply that you've understood, and so that they know that they've sent the message and they got it back. And if you don't go through that communication process, what does that mean? It means that you're breaking down the alignment structure. It means, as a leader, you're not getting your thoughts out and you're not getting followed because of a communication process. And you know, in real estate, they say it's, you know, it's location that's important. Well, in leadership, it's communication that's important. You can never communicate enough. All right. Okay. So again, understand this slide. It's very important. Look at lots of yellow, but understand that, you know, I talked about emotions of a receiver. How a receiver feels when a message you receive will influence how they interpret it. And they may react negatively to that message, you know, and maybe when you're upset. So, you know, when you're writing an email, you should always kind of leave it, come back to it, and get a sense of, you know, did you put some emotion into that? You know, the way you responded, were you sharp, you know, pert or whatever? So, you know, you got to understand how the receiver is going to take that, you know, in stride. So that I'll leave with you right now. Okay, so this was a little exercise we did in class today, and I would strongly recommend that you do this on your own, okay? And maybe you don't have to come back to your group or anything, but we're going to be talking about culture and cross-culture, and it's no secret that strong beliefs, core values and attitudes, which is the behavior result of beliefs and values, is tied in culture. And if you don't understand those underpinnings and undercurrents, you really can't use culture as a lever, you know, to achieve, you know, a result impact in business. I mean, that's what it's down. So what I've asked people to do is read these full. These are I think these are 55 values, and read them first, and then pick out the top 3, right? And set a priority to them. It's what is your most important value, and then what is your least important value of the top 3, and then what, here I'll give you this piece, is that, you know, people go into visit a business for an interview, and they go into the front lobby, and they see these framed pictures on the wall, and they say, here's our values. It's integrity, it's innovation, it's customer service. But when you read those words, do you know what it means? Right? So when you're doing your core values, I'm asking you to state what each value you have chosen means to you and why it's important to you. And that really gives you a better sense of, this is why it's so important, and then, then I'm going to get you to just write a personal purpose statement. And so this one at the top, to learn and to serve, that's mine. Okay, I've been using that personal purpose statement, in my own life for the last 30 years. And I can tell you that it's changed my life. And I'm hoping that this will do something for you. And even if you look at all the motivational speakers, you go way back to Napoleon Hill. And if you ever want to come across a book, Think and Grow Rich, you'll see that one of the key things was, the spirit of purpose, to understand purpose. And that's, again, why I introduced you to Simon Sinek, understanding the why. And that should make a profound difference. And then if you say, well, I want to be the best that I can be, as a personal purpose. Okay, I want to be the best that I can be. Why? What's driving you to do that? You see, so that, there's this technique called the 5 whys. So if you go down all the whys, then you'll get to the underpinning of really what's driving your purpose, from your personal value. So I hope that's a little piece that I can provide with you. But if you understand that, then you'll understand national and corporate culture and how to best, manage that, to be able to align people to goals, in an organization. Okay, so that's where that is. So now I want to talk about change management, and I can't underemphasize, how important a leader that knows change management, how more effective that they can be. And when I say leader, I mean leader manager, all right? Because those components really don't come apart anymore, as far as I'm concerned. But you take a look at, what is organizational change? Well, it could be changing in people's approaches. It could be changing in the structure of an organization. It could be using different technology. So there's a lot of things going on, and especially in our age of post-pandemic, if you take a look at the leaps and bounds that digitization in the commercial world has taken place, is that a lot of the management techniques and styles that we learned about, they're going to be challenged, because there's a lot more going on in terms of people are a lot smarter today. They're a lot more informed, so that, they need to be managed differently. There's different technology, with artificial intelligence and robotics and all those things that change, transformation. To be able to lead people through a transformation is going to be harder, and understanding that will really get you there. And one other thing. So in my experience, I was a change agent in many of the projects that I worked on. I worked in 2 mergers, and one, I had to. My project was working with the consultants and restructuring positions, vice president, director, vice president levels up in the organization in the merger. You want to talk about a job of trying to be a change agent there. And then the other one was in one division. I had to bring 2 wholesale divisions together and come up with a new organizational structure. Here's the thing about change agents. You'd never please everybody, right? And whatever decision that you corral or kind of guide, someone's not going to be happy. So most of the time, at the end of a transformation, the change agent gets punted. So you got to understand, if you're going to be a change agent, there's some risks, so do it well, okay? And they're a catalyst, and they assume responsibility for managing the change process. Okay, some more yellows, and this is, I wanted to really make it clear around, sometimes it's an external change that will activate an internal change in the organization that will result in an overall change in the organization. Sometimes it's just an internal change. What'll happen is, the market will change, because preferences have changed. Straight jeans have gone out of style, and now it's, the in fashion type of jeans. And then, it's because, it's just an internal change. We got to make those kind of things and find out, how to market them better. But another one could be the government decides, okay, we're going to legislate artificial intelligence. Whoa. Okay, so how does that change organizations that are developing artificial intelligence? So you got to know that it could happen externally into internally, or just internally itself to do that. Here's another thing to know about change. I remember reading this material that 60% of projects, like engineering projects, business projects in the US fail, right? A year. So why? So they try to find the root causes, and the perception is, it's the technology that we're using. If we had better technology, we'd keep a better handle on things. And then infrastructure. If we had better resources, and on time and whatever, well then, we wouldn't have had some of the mishaps we have. And then, oh, by the way, managing change. But look what the real roots of, the cause of efforts fail. It's here. It's change management. So you don't have, never underestimate the change management effect of transforming an organization to go from one state to the next state, be it a technology change or an organizational change or a market change. It's all about the people, right? And that's that's where you come in. That's why you're on this course. And what you need to understand is that you want to gain commitment, all right? Because if you don't gain commitment, you're not going to sustain the change. And it's easy to get compliance. Some people will just jump on board because they don't want to be embarrassed, or they don't want to, they have some fear of repercussion or whatever, and they'll follow you to the point where when they don't need to, right? I don't know if you've heard this expression, but a lot of times, when I was, in my former lives, we used to talk about flavor of the month. Oh, this is flavor of the month. That'll go away. Let's just kind of, give it lip service. Let's just say, yeah. But, we don't really need to commit to it because, somebody's going to change that next month anyways. And you got to be aware of that. And why? Because it's post-implementation resistance that could happen, or compromise implementation efforts and just out project failure. So commitment is key. And I want to show you this. William Bridges wrote this book called Managing Transitions. And if you read this book, it's just as pertinent in your life than it is in business. And what what it's all about is that we need to get to endings, all right? And when we get to that ending, then we need to look at a new beginning. But there's a transition between endings and the beginning. And the whole idea around that is that there's things that work, in the, the existing state, like maybe there's different processes that you have, or there's different technology that's really good. Well, what you do is in the transition, you work those things that are working well, and that gets you through a lot of the the challenges, getting through, and then as you're working through the transition, you'll get more confidence on the end results, and then people will start to, recognize, that, hey, this is working, and yeah, it's good for me, and I'm going to commit to it. So that's one piece. What I wanted to show you here is that something I learned really early in my project management days, and I think this will go a long way in helping you. Every project that I've been on, and I believe that every project that exists, goes through, this low period of organizational performance, you want to call it productivity, whatever, over time. And just knowing this as a project manager or as a leader, that you're going to go through this, you try to minimize that disruption. And how do you do that? Well, you start, specifying that, you know, the winnable items of the project get done first, and they call that lower hanging fruit. And then you celebrate those, and people start gaining confidence. Hey, this is kind of working. It's working well. When I worked with Anderson, which is now Accenture, they used to call this bottom here the Valley of Despair, and they got us ready for that on one of the projects I worked on with them, and it's key, and this kind of bodes well with. That's why I talked to you about, you know, William Bridges' transition. Understand there's some of those things that, you know, from your existing state, you know, there's different positives that you can use through the transition that you can keep. You know, others you're going to have to discard, but some of the good stuff, don't give it up and use it to get you through the transition to minimize that disruption. I think this is a key piece of information that if you carry that in your head when you leave this course, you're going to go a long way in understanding and how to anticipate, because one of the biggest attributes of a good project manager leader is to be able to anticipate what could happen. Okay, and now just in terms of the change, here's something that I learned when I was doing my master's. I looked at strategic planning as a intervention or instrument of change to transform an organization. And Jane Dutton talked about two things. One is doability and one is urgency. So let me talk about urgency. You know, if there's high urgency, people will be more motivated to get it done. So, you know, around Black Friday or Boxing Day, they'll say, oh, you know, these flat screen TVs are going to be on sale for 10 hours. You know, and you can buy it at 20% of the price. That's urgency, right? And you know how you're motivated, you know, based on that. So how can you create urgency as a leader in a project? And then doability. So if this task is so big, and people get the sense of how could we ever do this? And so that means they don't have any confidence that this could get done. So what you do is you try to chunk it and you get it down, and you can say, hey, this is doable. We do step A, and then step B will come, and then step C will come. It's all doability. So if you can increase the doability and you increase the urgency of a transformation, then the level of change will increase, and it'll be, you know, it'll be a lot more positive. So that's what to remember. And here's this other graph that kind of tells you that. You can see that as you're going down into this valley of destruction here, you know, it's disruption. And then all of a sudden you start coming up, you know, you're starting to get some acceptance. You know, people are exploring the possibilities now. And then you really get up to the point where they're saying, yes, yeah, I get it now. All right, this is going to work for us. It's going to work for me. It's going to work for the organization. So that's where you're going. And so you can see that, you know, on a first phase, you know, you might create awareness, but you're going to get grudging compliance. Oh, flavor of the month. You know what? I don't see how this is going to work, right? And then you keep on doing it, you keep on creating awareness, and people understand the change better. Well, then you say, okay, you know, okay, I'll do it, you know, and I know that, you know, maybe I'm being co-opted to do this. I mean, you know, leveraged or forced to do this, but I'll do this. But the minute that you stop on this, I'm out of here, right? So you got to look at the time that it's going to take to really get genuine compliance, where people are really, they understand that change and it's perceived positively. And then all of a sudden now you need to get to institutionalize that change. And what does that mean? That means so people don't slip back. What do? You establish policies and procedures. You know, you bring in training. You enhance the reward system around, you know, that new transformation. And then all that, then what happens? It internalizes into people, and all of a sudden, then, you know, it's the new status quo, right? So that's what you have to understand about change. But why do people resist change? Well, uncertainty. That's your biggest, you know, your biggest enemy. Habit. Well, let me tell you. Okay, so you're looking at the status quo right now. Do you know that as human beings, 40% of what we do on a routine basis, you know, is just a habit. And our brain goes on like autopilot, and you know, you've known this, where, you know, you'll be reading a page, you know, a book at night, and you'll go through three pages and then stop and say, what did I read in those 3 pages? you know, it's just a habit of reading, and your mind, you know, went on autopilot, so that, you know, understand that, you know, people have a hard time leaving their corporate habits, you know, and they got big concern over their personal loss. Oh, wait, this change means that my department budget has dropped by 50%. Does that mean I'm 50% less important? Right? Those kind of things. So change, or sometimes they say, you know, this is the wrong way to go. You've got those people in the organization. Sometimes they have the right intentions, and they just don't get it. They just don't think it's going to work, and they will work against that change. So understand that, you know, change is a small raft navigating in a raging river, and understand why it's the people that you need to get on board. And I'll just tell you one little story about that. So we had to change our service delivery process at TELUS. I was in charge of that at the time. $60 million of operational and maintenance money a year, 1,200 people across the province. And how did we get to the people? We brought 60 people into Edmonton, you know, from all parts of the province, and we trained them for 3 months, and we made them a team. You know, they really coalesced as a team, and we trained them in business process improvement. We trained them in running meetings. We trained them in change management. We trained them in business acumen. And when they left and they went back into their organizations, all of a sudden we had allies, because they would explain to their people why things were so important. You know, so there's really good things to understand about that. So here's another important piece. This is Lewin's three-phase organizational change. It's the bread and butter of change. And what it's all about is unfreezing, changing, refreezing. So you should understand that. What does that mean? So unfreezing is that you diagnose the need for change. You know, you gather data, you give feedback results, and you say, look, at this rate that we're going, you know, we're going to be out of business in 6 months, and here's all the facts. So people say, oh, okay, yeah, we got a threat here, right? And then you introduce the change, the intervention. They call it, an intervention, a change intervention. And what's beyond that? You know, the learning process. You know, so, you know, the 60 people we brought in, we taught them, right? The action planning, we showed them how to build plans. And then we had a major plan on action steps on what we're going to do. And then we got there. And then now, you know, this is where you're, on the refreezing, you're institutionalizing that change. And you want it internalized for everybody so people can't fall back. And so what you do is you look at motivating behavioral changes. You measure and you keep track of it. And you have systems that are redesigned to make sure you're going to stay in the new status quo. Okay, so that's how that works. And here, you know, here's a little more about, you know, what are some of the mistakes. You know, I think that you should really take a look at this piece. But here's all the change readiness assessment before you get started. You know, that that doability. Understand where you are before you make a change. And I'll tell you, in my experience too, there's you get into tiredness of the organization, and so what that translates into is that an organization gets so tired because there's so many change interventions going on that they can't digest the next change, and so you have to show that your readiness to take that next piece of change. And then do all these things around that to make it happen. Okay, and how you do that is you get many people involved. And you notice there's some yellow arrows here. So, you know, diverse teams are great because it brings all the perspectives in. And you know, when you're negotiating, and that's what you're doing, you're negotiating with a group of people. If you don't get the problems put on the table, they will be under the table. All right. And they don't get discussed, and you might be further down the road, and then all of a sudden you'll get a disruption because someone said, well, I didn't sign up for this. And when you have a diverse team, the chances of putting, you know, leaving stuff under the table, you know, are a lot less. So you get everybody's perspective to understand what you're really going through. And yes, you know, you need some mavericks out there to be able to push the envelope. They can't be too crazy. but they got to be, you know, people that, you know, are very passionate about what they got, you know, what they're going to do. So you need champions. So let's not call them mavericks. Let's call them champions, change champions. And again, when we put those 60 people out back into the province of Alberta, they were champions for us. Okay. There's a, you know, I'll just, we're kind of running out of time here. So I wanted to, you know, let you know that, you know, communicating is so important. And it has to start right from the top. You know, it's got to be seen that it's supported from the top, or people won't do that. And here we say, you know, positive ways were found to deal with bad news. I'll tell you something. When we did this large business process improvement for service delivery, we changed the service delivery system. There was all kinds of rumors about, oh, well, you know, this person, you know, is leaving the organization because they lost and this person won, and oh, they're really trying to take our jobs away, or they really don't know what they're doing or whatever. We created a newsletter called The Grapevine. And what it was, any rumor that came in, we would put it on the grapevine and we explain what we were doing. And I'll tell you the amazing results on that grapevine. Right, so those are the kind of things that, you know, is so important. You know, you've got to, you know, sharpen up your communication methods to be able to make this change happen. And again, you need to understand how to create a shared vision for change. And there's a technique called appreciative inquiry. You notice that it's yellow. You need to really understand what that is. But in a nutshell, appreciative inquiry is saying what's working in the organization. The glass is half full. It's not half empty. It's half full. All right. And you start with that, and then you find the bright spots, because there's different parts of the organization that are successful in doing some of the things that you want to take care of in the transformation, and you learn from those bright spots, those people in those bright. Why is that working? Let's see if we can take those concepts of what's helping them make that getting those results, and let's adopt that in other areas. So, you know, you discover what's going on. So what's the initial state, you know, what is, and then you start saying, well, you know, what might be, you know, how could we take a look at this? You never limit the possibilities when you're brainstorming. Like, you put it all out there and then start cutting back, saying, okay, well, that's, you know, crazy. No, we're not going to do that, right? But what might be? But then you talk about you know, once you have a realistic view of where your organization is, what's going on outside of it, what's going on inside of it, then you design and you say, yeah, this is what should be. And then you get that out, and you put, you know, you chunk that right into goals and objectives in terms of this is what we're going to do to meet, you know, that particular shared vision. And that's how that works. You have to overcome all these communication barriers, and then understand, you know, the next session of creativity versus innovation. So I'm just going to go through the pieces, really get a sense of what illumination is. It's the aha moment, you know, as you go through this creative process. And then once you get to that aha, well, then you got to try to, reproduce it. And that's what, validates your piece. The next thing is just to understand the needs of diversity in terms of your culture, and understand that tokenism, you know, you can't just, go through the motions and make it look like, okay, well, I hired this one individual because they're a minority. Now I've done my job. It'll impact negatively. You know, it won't work for you if it's just a token effort. So you got to be, your role has to be, you have to be highly structured, in interviewing and avoiding your bias when you bring in those people to make a diverse group. You need mentoring relationships, and then you need this inclusive culture. And this inclusive culture is understanding, where the value sets of your people are, and how can you have, a set of values for the corporation that people could adjust to or buy into, in that place. And knowing that's how you do it. So, you align your culture with your human resources and the structure that you need. Remember, form follows function. So know what your strategy is, know where that culture aspect needs to be, and then organize accordingly. And understand, that the national culture, and we all know what that is, like I'm a Canadian, I have a Canadian culture, and I work for Red Deer Polytechnic, which has a corporate culture. It's easier to change the corporate culture than, my views on, on where politics are in Canada. And understand that, here's where the deeply held beliefs and values are. They're not seen, so that you need to explore that. You need a survey. You need to understand where those values are, because that's going to shift behaviors. Even though you might see something on top of that iceberg. So that's the key learning here. And then I think I brought this up earlier in another topic, but understand there's 4 types of culture. This adhocracy, that's more of an entrepreneurial thing. This clan culture, there's a lot of mentoring going on, and just the word culture in there knows that you could use the cultural levers of expectations from elders, in that organization, because it's a supportive type of culture in the clan culture. In hierarchy culture, that's like the government, and so you can see how that breaks down, and then knowing all that we just covered in those slides. Now I'll get you to go through in your groups and do this one, where you brainstorm, on your own as a group, and input or upload as individuals, because I can't set it to groups in this particular one, but in future group participation topics, be able to just put one member will be able to upload, and that's where I'm going to leave it. Okay, so I'm going to send you a note about the exam next week, and also topic 9. I'll just say this and then I'll take a question. Topic 9, I'm actually going to do a video on that for week 9, and then you can go through that video, because the test is going to make up the whole webinar next Wednesday. Okay, there's a question out there. You can unmute.
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
For the participation, I feel like it says your chat GPT ideas. Like, is it a requirement?
Is it a requirement? Yeah. You gotta submit it. If that's what you're asking? But you don't have to. Oh no, you don't have to go to ChatGPT. You can just brainstorm that on your own, based on what the videos were all about that Professor Powers put around that, around culture, and the slide deck. So, but bring it together as a group, and then each member of your group upload that as individuals. Okay.
More questions. Like, for participation like this, do you require us to have specific number of words?
No, like just don't make it token. Like, just show me that you've made some effort and you thought about this, and it's mainly just to get to get you engaged in understanding how important a diverse and inclusive workplace is. Okay.
And I have more questions about the exam.
Yeah.
For the past few topics that we had a lot of computations there. Will there be numbers in exam?
It's going to be mainly conceptual questions. I can't remember. I don't think there's one calculation, but you know what? I'm going to go through the exam, and when I send you the email, if there is one, I'll let you know that there is one. Okay.
Sir, can I ask more questions?
Yeah, quickly, because there's Blaine wants to ask a question as well. Go ahead.
The project that we submitted to you last week, what will be your basis for that? Because, well, as I have remembered, like you have not taught us how to do those computation and like how to do stuff like so. My main concern is that we did not have any basis with that, and I might be more concerned of how you will grade the project because we didn't know any basis. And
Okay, but hang on. But what I did stipulate though was to go through the videos of Dr. Powers, because she went through that in detail. Right. But having said that, I'll take that into consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Blaine, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just going to ask when the recording for next week, when that's going to be released.
Well, I'm gonna release that probably. Haven't thought about it. At latest on the Thursday, but I might get that done beforehand. It depends on how much marking I could get done this weekend. And if I do that, I'll send a note out, and you'll be able to pick it up off of MS Teams or my channel, and I'll give you a link to the channel as well.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, and again, about that project, I understand there was a lot of computations there, so I will, I will be reasonable on that, on the marking.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, and thanks for that question, Esmond. I'm sure most people wanted to ask that question, so I appreciate that. Okay. Okay, we'll leave it at that, and again, get yourself ready. That browser will be required, and everything that was required on test one will be, and there'll be notes in that email that I send about that as well. Okay. Okay, we'll talk to you later.